And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Christian Hader, who writes, or Hatter writes, "Good morning, John. Love or hate them, the Fast and Furious movies are some of the most successful ever, which makes you wonder why some people can't put their feelings aside and just continue good business. Wondering if you saw that interview with Dwayne Johnson basically explaining that he'll never work with Vin Diesel again. Seems ridiculous that we can't see Hobbs in one of the final Fast and Furious movies. What do you think?" All right, Christian, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. I appreciate that. And yeah, it is one of, if maybe not the, of the last few years, one of the biggest production spats we've seen in a long time. Now, of course, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, also known as Franchise Viagra, he came into the Fast and Furious franchise. I believe it was didn't he pop up at the end of Fast and Furious 4? I think wasn't he in the post-credit? He might have been in the post-credit scene of Fast and Furious 4. I can't remember exactly.
You mean Vin? No.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought he showed up in 5 first.
Because there's a post-credit scene, I think, if I remember correctly, and I might not be, at the end of 4, I think, with Eva Mendes, I think. And I think it was Eva Mendes and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I can't remember if that happened in 4 or not. But anyway, his real first big appearance as a significant character in the movie was in 5. And of course, the box office, that's when the box office for the Fast franchise just took off and exploded. And Rob, you call it the Citizen Kane of the Fast and Furious franchise.
Yes, I do.
And, and then we saw Vin and Dwayne "The Rock" going everywhere together. We saw them at WWE appearances and all this kind of stuff. But then we found out that not all was copacetic, and that there was tension and arguments and fights. And it ultimately culminated when Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was being interviewed about one of the Fast and Furious movies. And he said, "Oh yeah, our female cast is awesome." And this was the first time we got wind of there being a problem, Rob. But he said, "Yeah, but a number of our male cast members are a bunch of candy asses." And we thought, oh, and then a lot of people started thinking, oh, is this a work? Is this them like setting up fake Vin Diesel versus Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson stuff just to promote the movie and stuff like that? And turns out it wasn't. It was very serious. Rob, it got so serious that Dwayne Johnson said the only way he was going to be in Fast and Furious 8 is if he had no scenes with Vin Diesel. And I didn't even realize that till afterwards. I had to go back and say, oh, right, he's never in a scene with Vin Diesel. They don't actually work together in the movie. And then, of course, he spun off. He's doing his own Fast and the Furious universe movies with Hobbs and Shaw. I like Hobbs and Shaw, by the way. I thought that was pretty good. Well, then Dwayne got married again. Vin Diesel sent out a nice social media message. Dwayne Johnson reciprocated. A lot of people thought maybe they can patch things up here. Maybe we can see Dwayne Johnson back in the Fast and the Furious as we move forward. But apparently, we shouldn't hold our breath about that. Dwayne Johnson was recently asked about the whole situation, talking about when things happen and whatnot. And he basically said the following. He says it caused a firestorm when he called some of his male co-parts, particularly Vin Diesel, a candy ass. Yet, interestingly enough, it was as if every single crew member found their way to me and either quietly thanked me or sent me a note. But yeah, it wasn't my best day sharing that. I shouldn't have shared that. Because at the end of the day, that goes against my DNA. I don't share things like that. And I take care of that kind of bullshit away from the public. They don't need to know that. That's why I say it wasn't my best day. No, I meant what I said, for sure. I mean what I say when I say it, but to express it publicly was not the right thing to do. Now, Rob, in the same interview, he goes on to explain that him and Vin Diesel later had a meeting in his trailer, and he said, basically, we just came to an understanding that we are two very different people. We just came to an understanding that we are two very... Let me see if I can bring up the exact quote. Yeah, here it is. This is the exact quote he said. He said, well, there was a meeting. I wouldn't call it a peaceful meeting. I would call it a meeting of clarity. He and I had a good chat in my trailer, and it was out of that chat that it really became crystal clear that we are two separate ends of the spectrum and agreed to leave it there. So it basically comes down to, Rob, it sounds to me like, yeah, this is done. Now, I don't normally like to talk about TMZ, ooh, celebrities fighting, but this has a direct impact on the movies we're seeing and what we will or will not see in these movies. And that's why I think this is an interesting topic to bring up. But it looks like it's pretty clear that he's not going to be in it. Now, Rob, the person writing in the question asked a fair question. This is supposed to be business, not personal. And Fast and the Furious is big business. Why can't these guys set aside their personal differences and do good business? And I understand that, but let me speak to that for a second. If you, Rob, would indulge me, let me speak to that on a personal note for a second. I get where Dwayne is coming from. Because while I agree with him that he never should have made this fight public, he never should have done that. That was a bad move on his part. Going, yeah, some male counterparts are candy asses. There was no need for this to be a fight made in public. This should not have been aired out. This should have been something that was handled privately. And he himself acknowledges that now. Like, what do I always say, Rob? The only thing that ever happens when you get into a shit slinging contest is everyone ends up smelling like shit. That's the only thing that ever happens. And he shouldn't have done that. And he knows that. And he acknowledges and says, you know what? That wasn't my best day. I shouldn't have done that. But as far as it being a business, sometimes things are so personal that it's just not healthy to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be terminally unhappy and where it's just going to cause you massive stress to do it and whatever. And I'll speak to this for a second. I remember when John Schnepp passed away and Collider had reached out to me and asked me if I would come and be on their John Schnepp tribute show. And I opted not to do it. I mean, John Schnepp was much more than just Collider. We could honor him anywhere. It didn't have to be on Collider. I didn't need to be on Collider to honor Schnepp, nor did Collider need me to be there in order to honor Schnepp. And for the record, Collider put on a great John Schnepp tribute show. They did. They put on a wonderful John Schnepp tribute show. Hats off to them. They really did. And since I was the guy who kind of recruited Schnepp, and I was the one who brought him in, and he was my co-host for a long time, and I created Heroes and put him in as the guy to be the host of Heroes and all that kind of stuff. I started getting a lot of emails and messages from people saying, you know, it's really weird. Why aren't you going to be at this? Why aren't you going to be at this? It's really weird. And so without airing any dirty laundry, I never have and I never will. I did just have to explain to people that say, look, I understand why it looks odd that I'm not going to be over at Collider for this. And I'm not going to name names and I'm not going to give specifics, but you got to understand, for me, that is an environment that I do not want to be in. And it's an environment that's not healthy for me. I said, for my own health and for my own well-being and my own mental, protecting myself mentally and all that kind of stuff, it's just not a place I should be. And I need to make decisions for my own personal health. And I'm going to honor Schnepp my own way in my own place at my own time. And I did. And, but I just can't go and be in that environment. It's just not something I can do. So I bring that up to say, I get it with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson saying, look, if it's at a point where he was so frustrated and it's just so stressful to even think about that environment that he's like, no, I can't be in those movies anymore. I get it. I do. So, Rob, I think the person asking the question isn't wrong. It's business. Can't you put your personal things aside to do business? I agree, yes, but there are exceptions to that where if it's just going to cause you a lot of mental grief and a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety and a lot of frustration, then that's not the most important thing in life. Just avoid it and don't do it. So I get it. Rob, you hear about Dwayne Johnson kind of explaining the situation. It kind of sounds like, yeah, he's actually going to be done with Fast and Furious. What do you think? Do you think that, they should be able to find a way to move past this and make big business together? Do you understand where Dwayne Johnson's coming from? How do you see this?
Well, still thinking about what you're saying about Collider. Look, I look at it this way. Dwayne Johnson is a machine. He is a finely tuned machine that throws all of his professionalism into everything he does on and off screen. And a lot of what he does is off screen to prepare for what he's doing on screen. And as somebody who I would imagine, I've never worked with him, but I've only heard stories that when he gets to set, he is the utmost paragon of professionalism. I mean, the man, he knew through working for Vince McMahon and all that, that he knows what to do here. And when he comes to work, there's an expectation I think he has that everyone else is going to work the same way that he does. Because for him, the same way he keeps his body, the way he keeps it, I mean, his discipline is such that I'm sure other people in Hollywood can be much more undisciplined. And when you come to work with an expectation of that kind of discipline, it can be extremely irksome, because what you're thinking about is that, wait a minute, we're here for a certain amount of time, a certain amount of days, and we're expected to deliver a product. And other people might have been interfering in his ability to deliver what he is being paid to deliver. You know, John, when I've done something that you haven't been, you haven't liked, you have called me up and you said, listen, we need to talk about this. And you've expressed your opinion. And usually you're correct. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. I completely hear you. And it's always about the work. You know, it's always about the work. It's never personal. A lot of people can't deal with that. And I think that Dwayne Johnson probably was like, look, there's a lot of Mickey Mouse shenanigans going on here that we shouldn't be doing. And he's thinking about his brand, and he's thinking about what he's bringing to the role. And I think at some point he said, okay, well, we have a lot of different personalities here. And if it's okay with everybody else, I guess I have to make peace with it, but it's not the way I like to work. So I think that in his case, what he's thinking about is his brand that he cultivates on and off screen 7 days a week. And why be in a position where the brand that he is building, and he built it for far longer than he's been involved with the Fast and Furious franchise, and will be building it far after he's done. So I understand where he's coming from, you know, and I completely get it. And he's got plenty of other movies to make. And while it might be business, ultimately he has to decide, is it good business for him?
Right.
And I think that he probably knows himself better than anyone else. And if they want to make another Hobbs and Shaw movie, I'm sure he's going to be there for it. But we just probably won't see him in Fast and Furious 10 and 11. But you know what? Maybe we will.
You never know. Stranger things have happened. And, you know, I also like the fact that he said, look, we met. It wasn't a peaceful meeting. We just understood we're on different ends. Some people are just oil and water, Rob. Some people are just oil and water. And, you know, I am a big fan of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'm also a big fan of Vin Diesel.
Me too.
And it's just unfortunate their personality types just won't seem to let them work together at this point. Anyway, question is for you guys. What do you think about this situation? Do you think this is something like, guys, there's so much money on the table, Dwayne and Vin put it together? Or do they say, look, they did give it a shot. They made a lot of money together, but if it's just going to be frustrating for the two of them, maybe they should just both move on. Do you think maybe some bridges will be crossed and we might see Dwayne Johnson in a Fast 10 or Fast 11? Whatever you guys are feeling, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.